Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Purdy Insurance. Visit Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury or visit online at purdyinsurance.com. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is the Steve Jones Show on what we're calling a Football Monday after what was a tremendous NFL weekend. And we got the national championship game tonight. Lots to get into today. Here on the Steve Jones Show, brought to you by our good friends at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury, or go to purdyinsurance.com. Home, auto, life, business. All sorts of good stuff. Start off the new year right with the best in the biz and insurance needs, and that is Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury, or go to purdyinsurance.com. And Steve in the Sunbury Motors Studio. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, all your pre-owned inventory needs. Great service department and sales staff. They'll get you set up with state inspections when you need it. I got one coming up soon on my vehicle. All those needs are all good for you, whether it's big or small, and it's all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Yes, I'm back in studio after my couple of weeks of quarantine and isolation. It's good to be back in studio. Thanks again to Tony and to the Suit last week for all their help running the board for me while I did some things from home, but not quite the same as in studio. So wanted to give a shout out to Tony and to Suit for their help last week running the board. But it's good to be back here in studio, ready to rock and roll, and coming off what was an epic day of football over the weekend, really, but especially yesterday. Just from a general standpoint, that is one of the best season finales I've seen in quite some time. And this is what the NFL was hoping for by adding more games, and they got it. There were a lot of speculation and doubts and critics about adding games, including myself, but it worked out big time in the NFL's favor, and certainly this can lead to adding an 18th game in the years to come, because everybody got their money's worth yesterday and really over the weekend. Kansas City and Denver was a good game to the end. Eagles, Cowboys had some entertainment to it early on before the Cowboys went away against the Eagles starters, or non-starters, I should say. And then we get to yesterday. Steelers get the win in overtime, which was a dramatic game in itself. And then you get to what happened with the Chargers and the Raiders yesterday. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm actually talking to my buddy Alex Kazor of Steelers Depot, who is a good friend of the show. And I'm just saying, something tells me that game is at least going to go into overtime, and that possibility of a tie is going to come up. And boy, did it. We'll play some of that audio later from the show, or from the game last night. But I will say this before I guess open up the complaint line, as Steve likes to call it. Kudos to the Raiders for playing to win the game last night, because they definitely were not going in that direction. They were clearly going to be okay with the tie. But then Brandon Staley, for I'll never understand the reason, calls that timeout on 3rd and 4. And then the Raiders decide, you know what? We'll run it down, we'll kick the field goal, and we win the game. Brandon Staley, and I think he's in, his third year as a head coach of the Chargers. He had an atrocious game last night in the team's biggest game of the year. Between going for it on fourth down and short from his own 18-yard line when you didn't really need to yet, at least, and then that timeout last night when clearly the Raiders are trying to run the clock down to end the game in a tie, both teams go to the playoffs. I don't care. I know he's known for his outward thinking when he's a big analytics guy. And again, this is where Steve and I have talked about this before, where the analytics gets in the way when you rely on it too much. It gets in the way of your common sense thinking in game. Tie game, you're going to the playoffs. Doesn't matter. The Raiders are clearly running the clock down. They've been running the ball. Who cares what kind of personnel you have out there? It doesn't matter. I think he's saying it just to cover himself up, because I don't think that really was the case. I think for whatever reason he had a brain fart, because nobody's that stupid. It can't be. Because if the Raiders are just running the ball or run the clock out, you can have one guy out there and it wouldn't have mattered. Because they were playing for the tie. But then you stupidly call the timeout, and guess what? Raiders say, you know what? Fine. We'll kick the field goal, and we'll knock you out of the playoffs. And that's what they did. And the Steelers get in. Now, as far as this whole tie situation goes, as I've said before, I hate the ties in the NFL. I get it, you want to reserve bodies and player safety, though NFL's a little inconsistent with that that idea sometimes. But you got to find a way to get a winner. I don't know off the top of my head right now how you do it, but that's why they pay them the big bucks. But one change they can make right now is if you want to give both teams a chance to possess the ball in overtime, fine. I'm okay with that. But don't make it 10 minutes. If each of these games had those 5 extra minutes, you're probably not having this conversation. And then you avoid...
Uh-oh, he's complaining again.
...possible issues like this.
Look.
That's all I'm saying. But it was tremendous theater yesterday, Steve. It was tremendous theater.
Let me start with this. The Eagles made a mistake, but that's, inexperience does that.
And what, not playing anybody?
Darn right. Yeah, I think that it has been shown over time, a long period of time, that you need to play your starters in this situation at least a half. I know there's a risk, but you're trying to keep them sharp. And people say, well, you're fighting to get that. Everybody fights to get the first round bye. Yeah, you're fighting to get the first round bye because, you do get a break that week. But at the same time, it also is fewer games you need to win. That's one of the and it also means you're home the entire time. That, to me, is why you want first-round bye. But I think they made a mistake not playing Hurts. Now Hurts is a little banged up. I mean, I do understand that, but I think they made a mistake not playing him and other starters if they were available, because I am a big believer in play them just enough, play them a half, just so they're in the rhythm and they stay sharp. As opposed to having a week off completely. I mean, is it any surprise? Rodgers played yesterday. He didn't have to play. He played. And I think that's a statement unto itself. He played. The result of the game is irrelevant. I expected Dallas to win big. They did. The Steeler thing is remarkable that everything fell into place. And look, the garbage about, well, they haven't won there since 2014. They're all different players and coaches. It doesn't matter. That stuff like that means so. It's like one of those like fun facts, but it has nothing to do with the outcome of the game. Well, Lawrence played great yesterday. He really did. I thought Lawrence played a terrific game, and they've got something with him. Now, as for the Chargers, where to begin? I think Staley has a chance to be a very good coach. And I've said that the entire time. There's a lot of things about him I like. But when you're the Kevin Cash of the NFL, there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't add up. It just doesn't. Fourth and a yard and a half from your own 18-yard line? What the heck are you doing? I had somebody say to me today, well, give the Charger defense, they only give up field goal. And I looked at him, I said, what was the final in regulation? 29-29. He says, oh, you think those 3 points got it to 29? He goes, oh, yeah, you're right. What are you doing there? I don't care what analytics say. You got to go with what common sense says. Common sense says, okay, let's see, I got 82 yards in front of me, which means I only have 18 yards in back of me. I better punt. Okay? Now, the idea of going for two to make it 29-22, interesting call. Because I like the way consequences versus reward. That's how I weigh it. And me, I kick the extra point there because now I know first of all, the extra point's a 96% probability of happening. That's one. As opposed to a 2-point conversion, which is 49-51. All right? Based on the numbers. But he gets away with it. So let's give credit where credit's due. He gets away with it. Okay, so then they score at the end. The entire drive, which was what, 19 plays? I mean, they ran 19 plays in 2 game minutes. That was 2 minutes. They ran 19 plays. And they scored on the last play. Herbert is just, young quarterbacks. I think Mac Jones is going to be good to very good in his career. Not great, but good to very good. I think that Lawrence is going to be very good, and who knows, if you put enough around him, he can be what we think he can be. Nobody else is really, right? And then there's this kid. Wow. What an arm. Mobility. Everything. Sees the field. Throws a touchdown pass the final game. You know what I expected in that spot? I expected him to go for 2. I kept thinking the entire drive, they scored, they're going to go for 2. Be kind of a fun winner-take-all play. He kicked the extra point. Then we get to overtime. Right? So he's already confused me how many times? How many times has he been confusing in this game?
Yeah.
And you're sitting there, again, these are decisions he's consciously making. Now, I thought that how they used their timeouts in the final drive to get to overtime were all well done. There's nothing wrong with that. Now we get to overtime. Why are you calling timeout? Now, you explained today you didn't have the right personnel package out there. But why are you calling timeout? A tie gets you into the playoffs. I would have put the ball completely in the Raiders' court as to whether they wanted a tie or not. Because Carlson has never missed a field goal in 2 years in that stadium. He's been 34-34. It's kind of hard to stand there on the sideline and say, I think he's due. Really? I don't think he's due. I'd have put the ball in their court and said, hey, look, you want a tie, we both get in. You want to play to win it, go ahead and kick it. It's all up to you. Because me calling a timeout with 38 seconds to go, what does that do? Nothing. You're not getting the ball back. You're not getting the ball back. I would have let the Raiders dictate, hey, we're going to kick or we're going to tie. Because my best shot to get into the playoffs at that point was a tie, and I called a timeout. Why? Let them call the timeout. There's nothing I can do about it now. Nothing. It's all in their court. What in the heck was that?
I personally think he had a brain fart, and he just used the personnel thing as an excuse. Because it was clear, as I just mentioned before you jumped on, Steve, that the Raiders were playing for the tie. I don't care if you have one guy out there, and it's 1 versus 11. It wouldn't have mattered if the Raiders were playing for a tie. Who cares what personnel you have out there?
And you know what? I'm trying to think. There is some service that puts together coaching rankings, and a lot of it's based on analytics and so forth. You know who's ranked number 1? He is.
Which is just laughable.
I know. I'm just telling you, as a slice of information. I don't get it. I flat out don't get it. And I sit there and I watch him coach games, and there's a lot of things I see that he does that I like. I sit there, but I want to ask, here's what I would like to know. What game have you seen this year that you feel like analytics won the game?
Zippola.
And how many games have you seen this year where you felt like analytics lost the game?
Zippola. Well, lots, actually.
I felt last night watching the game, analytics lost the game. Again.
Yep.
You got to be able to coach the game. And you've got to be able to absorb all the information you get, including analytics, no question. But then you have to make decisions based on your feel for the moment in the game. I'm sitting on the 18-yard line. It really isn't much of a conversation. We're punting the ball. Now, the result may have been the same. Maybe, they get a couple first downs, they get a field goal. But I'm sorry, that's one of those you sit back and go, what in the heck are you doing out there? If you're playing, you're looking at it like, what are we doing? It inspires no confidence on your sideline. They all think you're nuts.
Did you see, I'll play the audio later, did you see Herbert's face and his body language after he called the timeout? I think he said, we tie. What do we do? Like, he was flabbergasted. And that's your franchise quarterback.
No, I think what they asked him later what he said. He said, "I never wish for a time more," or something like that.
Okay, all right. I didn't.
Something like that. No,
that he was.
No, it's just. I don't know. Look, I find myself, as I watch games, like teams at the 40-something yard line, going in. It's 4th down and 2. I'm thinking to myself, hey, don't punt it, go for it. I mean, I think that way.
Doug Pete did that in the Super Bowl.
Right? But I'm just saying, yeah, whatever. A lot of people have done a lot of things. I mean, I saw Joe Paterno go for it on 4th down and 1 at his own 29 against SMU because he needed to turn the game around, and he did. All right? That's billions of years before Doug Pete going for it in the Super Bowl. It's like, let's not pretend he's some innovator, okay? I mean, for God's sakes. I was at Beaver Stadium. They had a 4th down and 1 on their own 29-yard line, and Penn State needed to turn the game around, so Joe went for it, and they got it. And they ended up winning the game 26-21. That was in 1978. I mean, was Doug Pete born? I mean, come on. It's like, that's what I love about young people. They think this is all like, this is brand new. I can't believe I saw this. Right? Really? I mean, Joe, in his second year as a coach in the Gator Bowl, was up 17-0. He went for it 4th and 1 in his own 15. They didn't get it. So it's not the first time I've seen a guy go for it in his own end on 4th and 1. Okay? And that game ended in a tie, too, 17-17.
When car repairs get difficult.
Well, I just don't know.
Me neither.
We get good. Sunbury Motors. More than quality new and used cars, Sunbury Motors specializes in complicated auto repair diagnosis. They can handle intricate repairs and even complete auto body with service open Monday through Friday, 7 till 4. And Sunbury Motors has made simple repairs easy. Maintaining your vehicle is necessary. Finding the time to do it is difficult. Welcome to Sunbury Motors Quick Lane. Open 7 till 4, Monday through Friday. Just walk in or call ahead. Relax in their remodeled waiting room with Wi-Fi, beverages, and snacks. While Sunbury Motors factory trained techs take care of your oil change, tire alignments, brakes, and inspections. Quick Lane, 6:30 to 6, Monday through Friday, Saturday, 6:30 till 2. Sunbury Motors, Ford and Hyundai, North 4th Street, Sunbury. And Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. We take the out of auto repair.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is The Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right, today's show brought to you by our good friends at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. All right, let's get to the great Brad Nessler joining us as Alabama plays Georgia tonight. First of all, Ness, welcome back. Great to have you with us.
Hey, Steve. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year to you. I'm gonna start out with somebody who's not there tonight and somebody who is going to be there tonight. Menchie is out, but playing in his, 4th game of the year now will be George Pickens. So what is the impact of your opinion on each? Because I think Pickens got hurt in late March with his knee. So maybe he's a little fresher now. So what do you think the impact of one not being there and one being there mean?
I think Mechie make a bigger difference, probably, Steve. You know, I thought that he was, all season long, he wasn't the home run hitter that Jameson Williams was, obviously. But I always kind of thought he was Bryce Young's security blanket, you know, like the old Charlie Brown Linus with the blanket cartoon, whatever. You know, he was the guy that he looked for on crossing routes and knew that he was going to get a first down if he needed one. You know, shorter routes, that type of thing, and sure-handed. Just they played together for, you know, at practice for an extra year too. So I mean, they know each other better. I think that'll have an impact. Although, you know, you unplug one 5-star and plug another one in. You know, that's kind of what Alabama does. And Javon Baker did a really nice job against Cincinnati and in the second half of the SEC championship game too. So, you know, Trayshawn Holden. I mean, they got other guys that can fill Mechie's spot. I just don't think they're as comfortable with the quarterback as he was with Mechie. Pickens is interesting. I talked to some people earlier today, and they wanted to know 2 offensive players that I thought would make a difference for Georgia tonight. And my number one choice was James Cook. I just think that he was underutilized in the SEC championship game. You know, I think he carried it 10 or 11 times, but, you know, the wheel routes and the type of stuff that he does really well, getting him in space against, you hope, a linebacker. And if not a linebacker, a strong safety or somebody, because he can beat those guys one-on-one, and I don't care who's on him tonight or who tries to get on him. If it's Brian Branch, Malachi Moore, Daniel Wright, none of those guys, Jordan Battle, none of those guys I don't think can stay with James Cook as a receiver. So I think, number one, James Cook's the number one option tonight for Georgia for a lot of different reasons. And that's not taking anything away from their freshman tight end, who is a stud, man. I just love watching him play. Yeah. But I said the second choice was Pickens, and people around here in Georgia were going, well, guy hasn't played 10 snaps, and if they've been holding him, now's the time to take him out of the holster. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think Todd Monken knows that. And he's as healthy as he's going to be in a Georgia uniform. He's probably going to move on. I'd be shocked if he comes back. Quite frankly, I was shocked that he ever put the uniform on again. Everybody around here just kind of thought that he would go pro, and that was it. So I give him a lot of credit for battling back and getting back in 9.5 months, whatever, to be able to play. And I think he's healthy enough, and he could be a factor. So those are two guys, James Cook and George Pickens, tonight for Georgia that I think are big. And the loss of Mechie, I think, is big because of the comfort factor he had with Bryce Young.
Yeah, that's a great point. The Pickens reminds me, this is a pro example, but the year Seattle beat Denver in the Super Bowl, suddenly Percy Harvin showed up.
Yeah.
And that's what I kept thinking about. Maybe now's the time Pickens shows up to help out the quarterback. All right. In the championship game, in the SEC title game that you did, I thought, I'm just from TV, so you got to tell me watching live, I felt like Alabama made Georgia look slow.
Yeah, I agree. And Bryce Young made everybody look slow. So,
yeah.
They tried. I don't know. I think, looking back on it, I think Kirby and Dan Lanning got a little bit cute with their defense. I think they wanted to, outsmart Nick Saban or outsmart Bill O'Brien or whatever their deal was. They just didn't let the kids play like they've been playing all year on defense. They were so sound, and they rallied around each other, and they looked lost, and they looked slow, and they looked like they were doing things that they hadn't done all year long, and were trying to get tricky. And that doesn't work with these guys. They're just too good. They're too fast. Bryce Young's too good. And everybody always says, well, you got to sack the quarterback. You got to affect the quarterback. They couldn't affect the quarterback. I mean, LSU did, Auburn did. I did those games. That was a different deal. How they did it, I don't know, but they did it. I think at that time the offensive line for Alabama was not playing as cohesively as they did in the SEC championship game, and even banged up against Cincinnati, they did really well. I still think the right side of their line is the weak spot if you're to get to them. And taking Bryce Young off his spot, as everybody likes to use that term now, that's not good enough. When he gets off his spots, when he gets really good, So yeah. I don't know what the defensive philosophy is. I think you just have to collapse the pocket completely. Georgia's got the guys to do it. They just didn't get it done. They got outplayed all the way around in the SEC title game. They know it. They've admitted it. A lot of the kids leading up to this game have just said, hey, we flat got beat. We got to make plays. And that's the difference. I think they have to go back to what they did in the other 11 or 12 games, when they weren't even pushed very hard. I mean, they were that good and that dominant on defense. And then they tried to get a little bit tricky in the SEC title game, and it blew up in their face. I think against Michigan, they kind of went back to doing what they did all season long, and that worked for them. And that's what they've got to do. They've just got to make plays. They got guys that can make plays. They were close. That wasn't good enough. They were just a couple inches off on everything. And that 2 inches with a guy like Bryce Young and a guy like Jamison Williams will kill you.
Yeah. Well, I'll use a movie reference that you and I will get. Maybe the younger people won't, but it's like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid with Bryce Young. Like the kid said, I'm better when I move.
Yeah, exactly.
He's better when he moves. When Jamison Williams was at Ohio State, I liked him, but he was also really young and it was really raw at that point. I didn't see him being this kind of receiver. What has allowed him to break out and be this kind of guy in the scheme of what Alabama does?
I don't know, because you saw him in year one or whatever, and I didn't get a chance to. I mean, I saw bits and pieces, but he was playing behind some pretty good cats there,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And didn't get enough chances. And, when they brought him in, they said, hey, we need a home run hitter. We need another Devontae Smith type of guy. we think you can be that guy with John Mechie on the other side. And he's like, okay, I'm ready, I guess. And then, I don't know if it's the plays they call for him or it's just the God-given talent he has. But, he had 5 touchdowns at 75 yards or more, something like that. Maybe it was more than that. So, game-breaking guy. And I was in awe the first time I saw him. I was like, whoa, this guy couldn't play at Ohio State. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So, I don't know if it was a second-year jump. I don't know if it was just getting in a place where he felt more comfortable. I don't know if it was the offense. He's a heck of a good quarterback, but he had a good quarterback up there too, So I don't know. Some guys make that jump, and when they get a fresh start, and boy, he's made the most of it. He's a first-round pick now.
You did mention Bowers, by the way. I mean, it's amazing. He's just a kid, but he plays a man's game.
Yeah.
When you and Gary watch him. What's been your thought process of watching how he plays the quote tight end spot?
Every play is he's got like one speed, and the coaches would say that about practice too. Is that as soon as he came in, if they're running sprints, and usually a freshman is like the upperclassmen go, hey Rook, like slow down. You don't have to run. You don't have to run a 10 flat if we're running 100 yards on a sprint here. The rest of us have done this a while. And he didn't give a damn. He just said, hey, this is the speed I go at, this is the speed I practice at, the speed I play at. And Kirby has said it doesn't matter. Every snap's like that. We get limited amount of time to watch him practice, but I have watched him practice and then seen him in 6 games live, I guess, and probably every other game they played. I don't even know who to compare him to. I mean, it's easy to say he's, a Gronk-type guy or a Kelsey-type guy or whatever. I don't know what kind of guy he is. And some of those pros have watched him and said, I don't know who he reminds me of, but Brock Bowers is good enough. He's phenomenally fast. The defenses in the SEC they just couldn't get that in their heads. I mean, every time everybody thought they had an angle, he outran it. He did it as a running back on end arounds early in the season when he scored a touchdown, long touchdown on a pass and a run. And then by the end of the year, he was just as fast as he was at the beginning. Against Georgia Tech, they had 3 defensive backs that said, okay, well, we got this guy. No, you don't have him. He's really remarkable. And when I saw that he wasn't on the list of the finalists for the Mackey Award, I said, man, I can't wait to see the list. And then I saw the list, and they were really good guys. And Weidermeyer from A&M was one of them, and he's good. And the Notre Dame kid wasn't on there, and I couldn't believe that.
Right.
And I realized the guys who were on there, caught a lot of balls and gained a lot of yards. If they're better than this kid, I don't know. And Steve, he's just like 18. I mean, he came in young.
Right.
So he's just 2 more years. I can't believe how good he's going to be if he stays injury-free, because he's really fun to watch.
Brad, he's the perfect example of he's too quick for a linebacker, he's too big for a safety.
Yeah, totally. And everybody tried a lot of different things on him, and none of it worked. And he was the one, really bright spot, really, in the SEC championship game. I thought he played great, but every game I saw him in this year, I thought the same thing.
When you sit down and you have a chance to talk to other coaches, coordinators that face Alabama, certainly at some point or another, I'm sure Saban's name comes up. What do they say about him?
They're running out of superlatives, and I think it's in the other coaches' cases, you don't want to be like salivating all over, going, "Oh my God, the guy's unbelievable," right. But he is, but they're in the same business, except half of them are 25 years younger or something than he is, right. And so there's a reverence there in that, he's the king, but we don't want to kowtow to him too much because our players will get wind of that, and then we're totally screwed, because the mind game involved on just trying to beat Alabama is bad enough. The players worry about the other players. They don't really worry about Nick Saban. But if, of all people, Kirby Smart would say, well, he has our number. Obviously, he's not going to do that. But, I mean, any coach that kind of, oohs and ahs over Nick Saban is not helping their team at all. You've got to just treat him like he's a guy that's won 50 games instead of 275, And so I think that the respect that's there is phenomenal. I've never heard another coach say a crossword about him or anything like that. And I think, when these guys get together for Nike trips and that kind of stuff, I think Nick's a fairly fun guy. You know, everybody likes to golf with him and that kind of stuff, and so just a huge mutual respect by everybody that he plays against.
Conversely, when you sit down and you talk to opposing coaches, what do they say about Kirby?
You know, those memes out there and everything, that's who's your daddy with Kirby and, you know, Nick's arms and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right.
that doesn't help the cause. I think they think he's a great defensive strategist. I think unless he wins this game tonight, or, you know, you're really lucky if you win. You know, Bobby Stoops won the national championship his second year at Oklahoma. I did that game. Urban did it, I guess, at Florida. You know, there's certain guys that can do it fast. It took Nick like 8 years or something like that to win one, and it was at LSU. It wasn't at Michigan State, as we know. So it took him that long. It took Jimbo a long time as a head coach, and you know, Kirby's in year 6. Everybody around Georgia thinks he's due because of the team he's got. If he doesn't win it, I don't think it makes him a bad coach. I think it sort of cements his legacy, and he can maybe have a sigh of relief and then go back to work 2 days later and go, okay, now we got to try to repeat if they win tonight.
Right.
But I think just to get the Alabama thing off Georgia's back right now would be that I've got friends that are Georgia fans. I think they're more worried about beating Alabama than they were about winning a national championship for the first time in 41 years. That's how bad it is it's been 7 straight. Can't beat Nick, can't beat Alabama, can't do this, can't do that. You know, so now they can do it all in one fell swoop tonight. If Georgia beats Alabama, make everybody happy for about 2 days, and then it's back to spring practice or whatever.
Exactly. And by the way, when I was done doing Purdue-Penn State Saturday, got back in time to watch Oklahoma State-Texas. Great call on that game, and a big win for Oklahoma State, too. So.
Thanks. You know, I seem to do like an Oklahoma State game every year, and every time I do them, they're supposed to get beat by 20, and they win. So thanks. Mike Boynton's given us some exciting upset moments in the last 3 or 4 years.
I've done, this will be the last point, I think I've done like 3 tournaments where Oklahoma State's been in it, and Penn State hasn't played them once. I've seen a lot of Oklahoma State, just not against Penn State.
Well, you know, that's like me. I do regular season games, and I go all over the country. You know, it used to be just I did SEC when I was at ESPN, so I knew every team inside out. Now I go all over the country, and then we get to week 1 of the tournament, and you got to do 4 games in one day, and I go, haven't seen one of these guys. Not one of these guys. It's unbelievable.
I know. Yeah. Brad, thanks so much. Appreciate you so much, my friend.
All right, Steve. Enjoy the game tonight, bud.
You too. Thanks. The great Brad Nessler. It's always fun just talking to him. We just talk. It's kind of like when Matt goes back to the corner office, talks to the suit. You don't actually talk to the suit, do you? You just kind of open the door and he just starts talking and you never get a word in edgewise, right?
To be fair, sometimes it's the other way around. It depends on the day. Sometimes he gets tired of me.
Was this one of those days?
No. I was just making sure that he was okay and survived yesterday. And he told me that he was just tired. That's all. Or he was exhausted from yesterday. I'm sorry. That was the exact wording.
I was chopping ice in my driveway and my sidewalk. That's what made me tired. Watching football was relaxing.
Get the lingerie on the deck. Call the janitor.
Just make more onion dip.
To be fair, I think that was all of Steeler Nation yesterday. And our buddy Alex Kozora, he was quite entertaining to follow on Twitter and talking to him yesterday.
Ay. Well, I think Gardner Minshew's starting for you guys this week?
No, Jalen's back.
Oh no, he didn't play the last game. He must be hurt. Oh, that's right. You guys played that adorable little game where okay, I got it. Great. Okay. Who's the quarterback on the other side?
That would be one Tom Brady.
Ooh. Pretty good. Back with more in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.